Hello and welcome back. Before we get to part 2, Real Talk, please allow us to fulfill our capitalistic duty and plug our Patreon, the Contrarian Supplements.
That's right. For a small fee, you too can help the Contrarians rage on.
We have tiers ranging from just $1 to $10. It all depends on how much content you can handle.
Starting at $1, it's a Travoltis tier, which gets you access to new bonus episodes focusing on a new movie every month, as well as access to the patron chat. Join other patrons in making fun of our opinions.
Moving up to $3 is the Winonis tier, which unlocks access to our pre-recording notes, our video reviews, and our spin-off show, Contrarians After Hours.
That's a more laid-back space where we talk about other things we've been watching, reading, playing, thinking about. Sometimes it's related to the movies being covered in the main feed, but it usually isn't.
If you want to be part of those patrons who help us shape the show by telling us which movies to tackle, that's when you sign up for the $5 tier, the Embries, and the $10, the Gads.
Finally, all supplement subscribers, regardless of the tier, get access to our archive of special patron projects. Head over to patreon.com/contrarianprime now to join.
Be sure to listen through the end of the episode to find out what's coming up to the Contrarian Supplements this month. Now, it's time for some Real Talk.
I've had a recurring dream recently. I'm back on the Oneida, having a glorious time. But I'm watching how ridiculous everyone else looks, and I wonder why they don't realize it. Then I see that in fact I too look like a fool. Yet it's so much fun that none of us can stop. If we stopped, we'd have nothing.
All right, Julio, we have ported. We are back in the graces of a fairly favorable Peter Bogdanovich film. Did it feel weird entering the 21st century with him? Was there anything about this movie that made you feel like it was Bogdanovich in a new millennium?
I alluded to it a little bit in Contrarian's Corner, and I think I'm still trying to figure out what the deal is with the cast in this movie, because I instantly, one of the main thoughts was, if you made this movie today, I feel like it would be one of those ensemble pieces where everybody is a name, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
a Gary Marshall film.
Well, I was thinking Wes Anderson, or you know what it would be like? It would be like those Kenneth Branagh, Agatha Christie adaptations. We have like 2 or 3 by now, right? It's everybody's a name, everybody's a suspect. So this would be
Soderbergh would be back in the director's chair.
Exactly, Soderbergh, just this artsy, fancy, kind of based on a true story, murder drama. It's not murder mystery, because like you said, we know who did it. We see it happen, but it just feels like it would be more high caliber. And I'm not saying that that's a problem with the cast here. Like, I don't think there's a weak link in the cast. I think that, but as a project, I think that a studio would sell it on the strength of, if not Bogdanovich's career, it would be on the strength of the cast. And I know that Kirsten Dunst was like up and coming back then, but I don't know if that was enough to be a draw. I mean, I guess apparently not, based on how this movie did.
You gotta wonder if it was 2 years later.
Right. Yeah. 2 years later, I think it's then you can just put it in the middle of the poster, and that's all that matters. But here it's just like mostly actors that I don't think were big enough to be box office draws. And while that certainly, you know, I don't think that that's ever been a concern with the Bogdanovich movies we've watched, but getting into the 2000s, it feels like maybe it should have been. I don't know. That was one thought. And then the other thought was like, man, if he was making a movie today, who would he put in his movies? Because that's the thing, you know, like he could have just said, no, I don't want any bigger names. I think I want the ones that are a little low key so that their public personas don't distract from the movie. That's a fair call. But then who would he be working with today, right? Like who's if you were to make this movie today, Peter Bogdanovich would cast who as the main players? Who would he get to play Chaplin? And I think that maybe it just wouldn't be a big name. it would just be, and not because he couldn't get a big name, but just because he wouldn't want to. I don't know. So my thoughts, I think this is definitely on the good side of his career. I think that he has his pet themes, he has his obsessions, and he has his point of view about Hollywood and about the way that we used to make movies and what show business does to people. And it works. I mean, I didn't feel like he was a man out of place or a man out of time. Did you feel that? Did you feel like maybe The Cat's Meow is a movie that shows that his golden years are behind him?
No, I quite enjoyed this. And it's, from what we've come to know about him in this summer-long journey, it's not surprising. He's still Peter Bogdanovich. People are always so eager to use the word uncompromising when it comes to filmmakers. For typically, they save that word for really gratuitous or salacious directors. But in this case, uncompromising just means like, he literally put his money where his mouth is, or was at the time. He just likes to make the movies he makes. The budget for this wasn't anything blow away. It was $7 million. And, Woody Allen's a good example of a director. There's obviously a bit more controversy or baggage that comes along with him. But the idea of someone who their later entries never really lit the world on fire financially, but still, found funding along the way. And they just made what they wanted to make. And I was kind of watching this. I'm like, yeah, I can see this being the same guy that made They All Laughed, or what was the one we did after
Noises Off?
Yes, Noises Off. That's I did not like Noises Off anywhere near as much as you did, but you can definitely see the line between the two. I was just watching this kind of with a grin on my face the whole time, like, yep, even 30 years after his big one, he's still just doing what he wants to do here. Doesn't give a fuck.
He likes what
in a new millennium.
Yeah.
In a time where it was becoming Matrix, Fast and Furious, like that was kind of where things were going. And even like from a dramatic perspective, Gladiator, this was the year that one. So, the melodrama, but also the visual style mixed in with that. It was just, no, this is Peter Bogdanovich movie. Certified Fresh. I left that out in the first half because I didn't even catch that beautiful, lovely logo right there. But a 52% audience score. So the audience liked it less than the critics did.
It kind of tracks because I think this is a little more niche, maybe, as far as not. It's not for all audiences. How many people care about movie stars of the 1920s? Like Chaplin might be the one thing that would catch the average person.
Julio, wait about 10 years after this was released and it's going to dominate the Oscars.
Okay, yes. But what dominated was the gimmick, really.
Yes,
so
accurate.
That's not. If Bogdanovich had made this a silent movie, I think maybe it would be better known. It would have been better received, maybe, probably, or at least more talked about. Look, this is where he is, and I think that I've gotten to the habit of doing this recap now in the later chapters of the Bogdanov film saga, just because to put us back in context, right? Targets, Last Picture Show, What's Up Doc, Paper Moon, just that's the opening stride, right? The streak. And then Daisy Miller stumbles, At Long Last Love, apparently also a bomb. Nickelodeon, just rock bottom, sort of. Bounces back with Saint Jack, which we put on Patreon. They All Laughed is divisive, and then he also suffers major personal tragedies at the time, so it kind of derails his career for 4 years. Comes back with Mask, which we haven't watched yet, but we will for Patreon, so that's also in the chamber. Illegal Yours, a disaster, 1988. That's probably rock bottom. Texasville, 2 years later. We've heard it's a disaster as well, but Alex will watch the Criterion Report at some point in the future.
Yeah.
2 years later, Noises Off, which we did in the main feed, and that's a bit of a bounce back. I mean, not terribly popular if you go by the number of reviews in Rotten Tomatoes, right? It's like, I liked it a lot. You didn't like it so much, but it's fresh, but nobody really seemed to talk about it. The Thing Called Love, that's not part of our journey. That's 1993, so the year after Noises Off, has Samantha Mathis in it, and that was the last thing he did. Then he did a lot of TV until 2001, The Cat's Meow. So it's like a big stretch of him not making movies. Now, is he not making movies because he doesn't feel like it, because he can't get financing, because projects keep falling, the funding is not working? I mean, I don't know. But I just know that he picks up with The Cat's Meow 7 years later, and it feels like we've been saying of a piece with when he's making movies, and he's in a good place. So after that, it bombed. So he does more TV. And then finally, 2014, so 13 years later, his final movie, She's Funny That Way, which is going to be our final movie here also. But, you can see it as, man, it's cool that in 2001, he still got it. Or you can see it as in like, man, it kind of sucks that 2001, the man who had like such a strong start to his career is, even when he makes a movie that you can't really point out, and say, oh, well, of course, it's not illegally yours. You watch Illegally Yours and you're like, of course it didn't do anything. But then you watch The Cat's Meow and you're like, oh, this should have at least broken even. But that's it. It's not like, I don't think that there were people that were going to see the new Peter Bogdanovich movie just on the strength of it being the new Peter Bogdanovich movie. And that sucks. I mean, that's the business, but that's a bit of a bummer. So.
And anyhow, failure is a character builder, right, Charlie?
I don't know, Tom. You tell me.
I think after Nickelodeon's when that stopped. Wouldn't you say? Like going to see just because it's a new Peter Bogdanovich film.
Yeah. I think maybe he stopped. I mean, there must have been a shift also in what audiences wanted from movies, and he didn't shift with the audiences, right? So,
well, this thing called Jaws came out, and then this thing called Star Wars came out.
He's like, nope. Today, he would be one of those people that would be refusing to make a movie for the MCU, even if they offered him whatever he wanted. And
God bless him for it.
Peter Bogdanovich's X Factor.
It's a crapshoot, though. There's another universe where this movie made a ton of money. I cited Midnight in Paris earlier, and that movie made like $150 million. So it's...
Okay, but the difference, Alex, Owen Wilson...
to be fair, the cast in that is way more pronounced. Kurt Fuller.
Yes. People had been waiting for that comeback.
It was... Okay, it was the... Rachel McAdams is his wife, so that 1-2 right there. Yep, and then you can sprinkle in Kathy Bates and Adrian Brody and
Talia
fucking yeah. So what I'm trying to say though is there's a universe for that movie, Tanks. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's you never know with movies like this, and I think sadly, even 30 years after the fact, be curious how much promotion this got, like how much of a push this got from. I believe it was Lionsgate that released it. Who's to say? But what we know, like I said, premiered in August of 2001 on the festival circuit, was released in the US on April 12th of 2002 and in the UK on June 4th of 2004. So staggered release there. Had a budget of roughly $7 million. Went on to gross 3.2 million in the United States and a little under 500,000 internationally. Worldwide gross of close to 3.7. So, tale as old as this summer adventure has gone. Peter Bogdanovich disappoints at the box office. 76% on Rotten Tomatoes, Julio. That does mean some of the reviews that were entered were not favorable. What was their problem? What was their beef?
For every 10 or 20 reviews that said Peter Bogdanovich is back, there were 1 or 2 that said, who cares? We're going to start with Brian Orndorff from Motomag.com, who says, a film for the suburban film fans to pat themselves on the back for seeing, not actually enjoying. Fucker. Why can't I just like what I like? Why does it have to be posturing? This is back in like, was film Twitter a thing back in 2001, 2002?
No. Twitter wasn't. Yeah.
Well, the pre-Twitter equivalent of film Twitter.
I mean, forums, which like, man, there's so many people today that are so like sensitive about talking shit on Twitter or something that, what is it? There's a lot of people out there that were never part of any forums, and it shows. I'll tell you that right now.
Gary Thompson from Philadelphia Daily News says, too often, Cat's Meow feels stagey, dressy, miscast, and generally inauthentic. First of all, Gary is the Cat's Meow, not just Cat's Meow. Secondly, stagey, dressy, that's just the 20s. That's how people moved about and dressed. And generally inauthentic, I don't know. I mean, it feels on par, I felt, with what I think of when I think of a movie from 1920s. Mm-hmm. So I don't even, Contreras Corner, we talked a little bit about Kirsten Dunst maybe being miscast, but now that we're in real talk, I can tell you, I don't think so. I think that she stands out, but I think it's just more of the youth of her. And yes, you brought up Alison Pill, but even Alison Pill in Midnight in Paris, she's playing older than what Kirsten Dunst is doing here. So I think that it's not so much that she doesn't match everybody else because she's so much younger, and I think maybe up to a point less corrupt. But we can talk about that. Sean P. Means from the Salt Lake Tribune says, always so respectful of old Hollywood, Bogdanovich tiptoes through the graveyard lest he wake the ghosts. Did you feel that he was pulling his punches in this movie? Because I didn't.
No.
He literally accuses William Hurst of being a murderer.
And that review kind of touches on what we were just talking about. Always with the desire to pay respects to classic Hollywood. That's what brought him to the dance, and that was his downfall as well.
Yep.
So at least he went out swinging here, or shooting, as it were.
Shooting at Chaplin. I mean, I think that the portrayal of Charlie Chaplin in this movie is pretty unflattering and probably well-deserved. I mean, from a certain point of view, right? I referenced the Chaplin biopic with Downey Jr. in Contreras Corner, and that movie, obviously, that movie's mostly interested in celebrating Chaplin's life and achievements and all that, but it also shows him as what I guess is just common knowledge by now, a womanizer and a man that was mostly driven by his career and broke a lot of hearts, hurt a lot of people, and so on. So this portrayal of Chaplin tracks with that portrayal of Chaplin. It's just that in The Cat's Meow, they just show him as mostly an asshole. Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem with that. And that's why I think it's weird if the Sean P. Means it's implying that Bogdanovich is not being harsh enough on old Hollywood. I don't know. I didn't see it that way. We're going to close with Rick Rohn from Globe and Mail, who says, the result is good gossip, entertainingly delivered, yet with a distinctly musty odor. Its expiry date long gone. I don't know if, I think he's wrong.
Yeah.
I think that there is at least a handful of true crime podcasts that deal with this exact kind of shit, the old Hollywood scandals. This is prime fodder for that kind of stuff. There's an audience and there's an interest in exploring this. Like, I've never been much of a true crime person, and even then, I can get hooked on the right one. If you told me the true story and allegations of Tom Hines' death, man, I'm in for 10 episodes, 20 episodes, however long you want to stretch it.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently somebody wrote a play about it, and then Bogdanovich decided to make a movie about it. Yeah, that's not... I don't think that the subject matter is past the expiration date, and I don't think that filmmaking is either. So, gotta disagree with this one also.
Well, it's not that I doubt your background in the motion picture business, Tom. On the contrary, that's just where it's been lately, in the background. I have to admit, you're not the force you were 5 years ago.
But well, Alex, here we are, all these years later, with Peter Bogdanovich. Not a whole lot of familiarity on some aspects, right? Like, most of this cast is not people that we know at all, or people that we know very little.
I don't know if I've ever seen Eddie Izzard act in anything. I know I'm familiar with some of his, I've seen his performances and whatnot. When I figured out who it was with the closing credits, I was just like, fuck. I guess I missed his name in the opening, but then I was kind of blown away by it because he does a good job. Everyone in this movie does a good job. But yeah, varying degrees of overarching knowledge of bodies of work here.
Yeah, this is my second time watching it. And the first time I watched it, I didn't even know who Eddie Izzard was, I think. So I knew Kirsten Dunst, and that was, and Carrie Elves, I guess. But I didn't know who Peter Bogdanovich was. I think we discussed it on something, an after hours maybe, or a warm up, the golden age of Netflix sending you DVDs. And I'm pretty sure that's how I watched The Cat's Meow. It was one of those DVDs that arrived via Netflix because it was on my list, and I watched it when it arrived. And I was like, all right, that was a movie with a bunch of people I didn't know. And I think that that time when I watched it, I mean, I liked it. And I remember thinking that it was a side of Chaplin that I hadn't seen before. Because I don't think that I'd seen the biopic at that time. And I felt that it was kind of bold to make a movie that paints him as a bad guy. Like, he's not the worst guy in that cruise and that yacht, but he's not a nice person. But then nobody is. So I don't think it was a problem back then for me. And it definitely wasn't a problem. I think, if anything, I think I enjoyed the movie more this time because everybody is just so unapologetically selfish and self-centered. Did you have a problem with that? Because I know that can be a problem sometimes, when you just can't find anybody to like hold on to through the story.
Not in this. No. Yeah, that can create an issue. Because no one's rewarded in the end of this. Everyone ends up unhappy as they deserve to be.
That's true.
With the exception of Jennifer Tilly, who in the closing moments of the film is just outed as she may be the biggest monster of them all. She was there with the expressed purpose of, not expressed, but the sole purpose of getting ahead. And she found her opportunity and went for it. No, I really enjoyed this. Like I said, it's listed as like a mystery thriller. There's really no mystery to it. I guess when you start the movie, you just wonder who's going to die. And so it's, I think the movie viewers of today that are used to things like Knives Out or something may find like the story, the way this is told, to be a bit anticlimactic, I guess would be the word to say. But when it built up to the moment where he shot Carrie Elves, I was like, oh, fuck. I thought that was very well done and impactful. Yeah, everyone is shit on this, but it makes some comical moments of people like trying to one up each other, or when someone has a one liner to kind of put another person in their place, like that eating crow line I thought was fantastic. And I feel like they're all aware they're shit too, and none of them convince themselves or the audience that they're doing something for the right reasons, because none of them really are. And I think that's the way the characters are portrayed and the way this movie's executed. It somehow makes it go like faster and slicker, and because there's really no moral quandary for you to get hung up on as a viewer, and like there's no moment in the movie that makes you go, well, hold on, I'm still processing that, let's slow it down here. So like I felt like the pacing of this was really quick, and it helps that the dialogue is there too. And it's no, to answer your question, no, I'm kind of talking through my thoughts on it right now, but I have had that problem with movies we've done in the past. But like I said, there's no reward really for any of these folks, besides the fact that they're already in positions of power. And this movie, the whole idea of pulling punches, it just kind of shows the evils of what Hollywood was. And I think what is supposed to be read between the lines too is, still is. It's an industry that for decades, centuries, covered up things like murder and shit like that. So I think it makes its point. But you could also read that as kind of sad that all these people are involved in this and pull it off so convincingly. And not to say like, Kirsten Dunst is evil or anything like that. I don't know her, but
she's not
evil. It's an interesting movie. No, it's an interesting movie that you could read in a lot of ways.
Yeah, Kirsten Dunst, the Marion character, she's not evil, but I found her so frustrating, and it reminded me of how you would get frustrated with the Sybil Shepherd character in the Last Picture Show, and how manipulative she is in that movie. I felt that way in about Marion in The Cat's Meow, because I feel that she's as bad as everybody else. And I know the movie knows it, like Bogdanovich knows it. I think it's a very honest portrayal of a woman, a young woman that's doing what she thinks is necessary to stay afloat, to stay ahead. And she kind of lucks out, I guess, in the fact that she gets the attention from Hearst. And, she has that scene where she tells Carrie Elves, I don't ask for anything. That's the secret. And that is, that shows a character that's very much aware of her power and where she is. But then at the same time, you have her having this sort of a high school giggles with Chaplin. And I think that's the part that would just exasperate me. It was like, they were both, like her and Chaplin is being so careless. And like I said in Contreras Corner, I guess a joke, but just so disrespectful. Just not to say that they had it coming, but it's almost like, what did they expect? Right. But that's part of the Hollywood critique, the hubris that you have, I guess, when you're part of this elite, that you stop thinking that regular consequences apply to you. And so you have Chaplin, who, even though his most recent movie was a flop and there's issues with his current production, he still acts like he's entitled to everything in that yacht, right? He's entitled to Marion's attention. He's entitled to everybody's respect. He still comes across as more sympathetic than Hearst, because Hearst is an even bigger asshole. But overall, like, these are just people that they're not us, and that's fine. The fact that P-Bog spends 2 hours with them, criticizing them and showing how ugly and out of touch they can be, when earlier in his career he made a movie, he made Nickelodeon, which was 2 hours of him kind of looking at them with rose-tinted glasses. And by the end of Nickelodeon, it's like, hey, aren't movies great? And isn't filmmaking this thing that makes the world a better place? And then you get to the Cat's Meow. At the end of the Cat's Meow, it's like, man, we're all trapped in this Hollywood bubble, and it's making us worse people, but we can't leave it because we're having so much fun inside. It's a very sad progression, even though I think it's very realistic, and it just shows the older you get, the more jaded you get about the things you love. So I think that you can see how his relationship with Hollywood has changed throughout the years, between Nickelodeon and the Cat's Meow. I love that final shot. I don't know. You were making fun of it in Concerns Corner, comparing it to Titanic. Is it because you really think that it's a little too much to have them dancing at the end, or were you kidding?
No, I don't think it's too much. I get it, but I don't like the black and white to color, the black and white back to color just for the end. But that's very, very, very picky. It is like the ending of Titanic in the sense of the narrative character taking us back for one last look at the crew. But, other than that, I get the idea of what the ending is expressing, and it's just what we're saying. She says, in my dream, I can see us and how foolish we all look, but we don't stop, because if we stop, we don't have, I forget the way she words it, but it's basically like, in silence, we have to deal with the reality of things. Yeah.
And, she has that brief moment where she stops dancing, looks at her reflection, and then goes back to dancing. That is the kind of thing that, as I'm describing it, I'm like, that is so on the nose. But when you're watching the movie, it's like, that's great.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just the energy of the Charleston that just makes it all flow so much better.
It would have been better if she looked in the reflection and said, I guess I still have some healing to do.
That should have been the William Hearst line.
Yeah.
Charleston, everybody.
Charleston. 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 Charleston.
Jennifer Tilly, as you called it out, and rightly so, probably trying to recapture her previous success with another character from the 20s, was it? Like Bullets Over Broadway?
I think, but continue on while I confirm that.
Yeah, I had forgotten, like I said, I've seen this movie before, but I had forgotten the turn in her character.
20s, yeah, 1928.
Yeah, there you go. So when she first showed up, I'm like, oh, she's playing a Jennifer Tilly character. She's just being silly. She's being comic relief. And she is for most of the movie. And then she gets to that moment where she absolutely transforms and basically blackmails Hearst into giving her a career. And
a lifetime of work.
Yeah, it was like security forever. I loved it because it's, it gives her the opportunity to do something else as an actress. She suddenly gets to bully this man that's been bullying everybody. She gets to bully him for 5 minutes. But then also I had to think, I kind of like step back. I'm like, man, there's a pretty good chance that there's still like descendants from this woman. Like this is somebody that existed, right? In real life.
Yeah.
That's I mean, just like there's probably descendants from Hearst and Chaplin and so on, right? So can you imagine like you're like minding your own business and then somebody makes a movie about your great grandmother showing that she was an accomplice in this murder, that she helped cover up, and that's why she was so successful? That's a wild turn of events.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that can lead to legal action. So I wonder how they navigated that when it comes to the depiction of all these people. I mean, it's not, I don't know how it works, because it's not.
There's no based on a true story title card in this, is there?
I didn't see one. And I did not see also the disclaimer of, at the end, any resemblance to.
Oh, yeah. It's coincidental.
Or whatever. Yeah. I don't know if it's there or not, but still, I mean, it is Charlie Chaplin, is William Hearst, and it is Lolly, whatever her name is. So these are people that existed and people whose legacies are still alive. So I know that there is the further you get away from when things happen, I mean, I think the easier it is to tell your own version of it. But I am surprised that, for example, the Hearst estate didn't put up a fuss about this movie. Basically saying, yeah, he killed a man and then he covered it up.
I'm curious about that too. No director is more steeped in Hearst, Wells, Kane, Hollywood lore than Peter Bogdanovich, wrote film critic Roger Ebert, who heard the Orson Welles version of Thomas Eintz's death from Bogdanovich. It happened that as Bogdanovich told me this story, we were aboard the QE2, crossing to Southampton on the 25th anniversary voyage of the Telluride Film Festival in 1998. When Bogdanovich returned to New York, there was a script waiting for him. It was an adaptation of Stephen Perrow's play about the very same scandal. Fate was sending him a message. Film scholar Jonathan Rosenbaum, editor of the 1992 book This is Orson Welles, a record of interviews Peter Bogdanovich conducted with Orson Welles, began his April 2002 review of the Cat's Meow with this exchange about Citizen Kane. This is Orson. In the original script, we had a scene based on a notorious thing Hearst had done, which I still cannot repeat for publication. And I cut it out because I thought it hurt the film and wasn't in keeping with Kane's character. If I had kept it in, I would have had no trouble with Hearst. He wouldn't have dared admit it was him. Bogdanovich asked, did you shoot the scene? No, I didn't. I decided against it. If I kept it in, I would have bought silence for myself forever. The incident Wells alluded to in this exchange is the subject of the Cat's Meow, directed by Peter Bogdanovich and adapted by Stephen Perros from his own play. Rosenbaum wrote, Bogdanovich may see Wells as the inspiration for this film, but I have no idea where Perros got his facts. Rosenbaum did a similar story in the 1979 edition of the Film Encyclopedia by Ephraim Katz in the entry on Thomas Einz, and in the 1971 essay on Citizen Kane by Paul Kael. Her principal source was John Houseman, script supervisor for co-writer Herman Mankiewicz, and it seems safe to conclude, even without her prodding, that some version of the story must have been cropped up in Mankiewicz's first draft of the script, which Wells subsequently edited and added to. According to Kael, the only trace of the subplot left in the script is a speech made by Susan Alexander, who was loosely based on Davies. To the reporter, Thompson told about Kane, look, if you're smart, you'll get in touch with Raymond. He's the butler. You'll learn a lot from him. He knows where all the bodies are buried, Kael writes. It's an odd, cryptic speech. In the first draft, Raymond literally knew where the bodies were buried. Mankiewicz had dished up a nasty version of the scandal, sometimes referred to as a strange death of Tom Einz. I don't think we'll ever likely know what happened for sure on Hearst's yacht on November 19th of 1924, Rosenbaum concluded.
I just looked up a picture of Thomas Einz. He does not look like Cary Elves.
Not as pretty, no sir.
But he doesn't look like the producer from Nickelodeon. So somewhere in between.
Just rounding out there. the reality basis. In a 2008 interview, Bogdanovich said, "I was talking to Orson for my book." This is Orson Welles in 1969. And he said, "You know about that thing that happened on Hearst's yacht?" He said Welles had been told the story by screenwriter Charles Lederer, Marion Davis's nephew, and that Bogdanovich subsequently confirmed the account with Lederer. And when Orson told me the story, it was virtually the same story as what Stephen Peros had written. The particulars in terms of the letter or the hat, those were details hypothesized by Stephen based on his research, but the actual plot of what happened and who was doing what and why, that was all the same. So that's interesting. I love this idea of Stephen Peros having this information that no one knows how he got. He's like Tom DeLonge. So yeah, I guess that's it. If you can't prove it didn't happen.
But that's not how it works, Alex. That's not how the justice system. I guess nobody's going to prison over this, so that makes sense. But I can't just make a movie about. That's defamation, right? Like, isn't it? Like, it could be. You can do a parody. I think that parody protects you in the sense of.
Parodic activity is protected under the First Amendment.
Right. But I can't make a movie that says that you killed a dude. That's just not. Unless you specifically, I guess, make it clear that it's fiction. But I don't think that this movie is doing that. So it seems so risky. Why would you do that? Unless you actually want to open that can of worms and just challenge anybody to tell you, tell me that this is not what happened.
Yeah, you're right. Just because you can't prove it didn't happen doesn't mean that you still can't claim slander or libel. But that's interesting what Orson said in the beginning, that he wouldn't dare challenge, or he wouldn't.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah.
Right. But he didn't do it, I guess. He didn't put it. And then, because, if I remember correctly, Hearst actually got him in legal trouble over Citizen Kane because, and he's not even called Hearst. It's Kane. But I guess the parallels were so easy to spot.
I do not ask much. The little that I do ask, I must be respected. I don't say this as a threat. It's just a wish I have as a man.
I haven't seen Citizen Kane in forever. I've only seen it once. I was not. We've talked about that before on the show, right? Like, I appreciate everything it did. I admire it, but it never connected any sort of emotional level with me. But this has me curious about it because, like I said in the Dress Corner, I don't feel like it's the same character. My memory of Kane in Citizen Kane is a person that's very different than what we see here in the Cat's Meow for Hearst, which is fine because they're different characters. But I would have thought that I would see echoes of it. And maybe, when it comes down to it, Hearst in this movie is pretty ruthless too, but he felt like he was not in control for so much of the movie that it kind of throws me off when I think of this is the demand that was the template for Citizen Kane. Mm-hmm. But like I said, it's been so long since I watched Citizen Kane that I could be way off. Maybe there's a lot more of insecurities and just overall doubts plaguing Kane in that movie, and I just don't remember. I just think of Orson Welles just trudging ahead, building an empire, and that's it. But can you imagine fucking Edward Herrmann doing the Rosebud scene? Just Kirsten Dunst by his side, and he just lets the snow globe fall or whatever. I don't see it.
Ebert gave it 3 stars. He was a fan.
Yeah, Ebert appreciates P-Bog's filmmaking. I think the problem is the younger generations. I don't know how you bridge the gap. That's the thing. If Peter Bogdanovich was alive today and making movies today, in the year of our Lord 2024, would he still be scrounging up funding to make a movie like The Cat's Meow or even like Noises Off, right? One of his serious movies or one of his comedies, but still that type of movie? Or would he do something that has more modern sensibilities, that feels like something from this millennia? You said he directed an episode of The Sopranos, and I think that maybe his work on TV is something that's more modern. And then, but for movies, he has more of that classical approach. And I'm just gonna stay in my sandbox, even if that sandbox is nowhere near as popular now as it was before.
Yeah, if he was still around, and he lived for almost 10 years after the last film he made, and I can't subscribe to a theory that he would have attempted to adapt to what's going on now. It's also because like I feel like I've gotten to know him at least better as a filmmaker, not necessarily as a person, over what we've done here, and I can't see him trying to make something like fucking Uncut Gems or something like that. Like, I just don't. It's not why he got into filmmaking. It's not what he likes to do. And for better or for worse, and I think in some cases we'll find worse, he stuck to his guns. And we only got one more left, man.
Yeah. And I think it was, and I know, because it's a rotten one, it didn't have the positive reception that this one did. So in that sense, he's going to end on a down note. But also he had a lot of other stuff going on. I know he was writing a book, I think, and he had like this series of interviews, like a podcast about interviews. There's a lot of stuff that he had. I mean, he was still active, right? And he was still Peter Bogdanovich. So. Mm-hmm. But it is definitely not the career that somebody like Scorsese, for example, has, right? And you can say that Scorsese has remained true to his vision, but maybe his vision, his filmmaking is less niche, and so that allows him to just go decade after decade. He's still making movies that have a chance of having mass appeal.
Yeah, I have absolutely adored some of the films we've covered here, and even Paper Moon we did before this here. And is there any movie we've watched of his that you would say is like as universal an appeal as, say, like The Departed or Goodfellas?
Well, here's the problem. I think that if you actually got somebody to sit down and watch it, something like Paper Moon would be, how can you resist that?
Yeah.
It's very, back to basics, just a man and his daughter, the road trip being funny. It gets emotional. It gets good laughs. It's the whole package. But how do you get anybody to sit and watch it? It's like most people probably don't know who Ryan O'Neal is. It's in black and white. It's set in the Depression era. So he makes movies for film buffs. And so The Departed, it's a great movie, but it also has like all stars. Yeah, Nicholson, Damon, DiCaprio, Baldwin.
I know this, dude. That's why I'm just saying. It's got the Dropkick Murphys playing in it. It's got, like these killer soundtracks. That's what I'm saying is like.
But that's what I was saying earlier. If you give me an all-star cast for the Cat's Meow.
Even Jeff Bridges is who's the biggest name that's been in one of these movies we've done? I mean, Barbara Streisand maybe, but
yeah. I mean, at the time, I guess Streisand and Ryan O'Neal maybe, but they were not. Obviously, Barbara Streisand has remained a big name, but not in the way that
Audrey Hepburn.
Yeah, but she's not. The movie's not about her. Like, she has a small part there. Funnily enough, Rob Lowe at the time of Illegally Yours.
God, you're right.
But look, recast the Cat's Meow with just an all-star.
Release it 2 years later, and then maybe you got a shot. I know I said that already, but I can't. That you're exactly right, dude. Like the advertising on TV back when that shit mattered would be like Spider-Man's Kirsten Dunst and Eddie Izzard.
The Princess Bride, Carrie Ells.
The Princess Bride, Carrie Ells. Bride of Chucky, Jennifer Tilly. And Eddie Izzard. Yeah, I mean, this is a fascinating movie. Dude, there's an alternate universe where this movie, like, goes hard into the award season.
Yes. Yeah. I was about to say the opposite. I was about to say, look, maybe it was just never meant to be because it's like a movie about all Hollywood. And yes, the artist was very successful, but that is, like we said, a gimmick. But a movie like this, it's not going to be big. But something like Noises Off. And Noises Off, I love it. I think that's perfect, just the way it's cast and everything. But if you replace Everybody Noises Off with a name, right? And you have Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Leonardo DiCaprio, Claire Danes, Jennifer Lawrence,
Vera Farmiga.
everybody. And the director played by Benny Safdie. In
Jesus.
no, actually, a bigger name because nobody knows who Benny Safdie is. We know,
Whoa,
but
whoa, hold on.
like, we're talking about like the general audiences. So
Ed Harris as the
Ed
director.
Harris as the director, yeah. But anyway, you have, and then I think that movie has a big chance of being a success because it's a funny movie, big name actors being silly, and that is very accessible to audiences all throughout. But a movie about a media mogul killing someone and Charlie Chaplin being in the yacht when it happens, I mean, that is just, like I said, it's niche. So even if you had like a big cast, a famous cast, it would be something that most people would be reluctant to watch. They'd be like, oh, we'll wait for streaming.
Yeah, not arguing.
But like you said, it could get a lot of nominations, and then people would watch it on the re-release.
California Curse? What's that? Oh, not that nasty thing, not now.
I greatly enjoyed this movie, Julio.
I did as well. I was surprised by how much I ended up liking it. Nay, loving it.
It's on Tubi. A direct film rip, it looked like.
It was one of those things where I started watching it and I was really tired and I was like, oh no. Because I knew that if I kept watching, I was going to watch all the way to the end. And then I was going to have a really hard time the next morning. So I was like, nope, I'm just going to stop it now. It was like 20 minutes in. And I just watched it again from the beginning today. And it was great. That's another one I'm just going to recommend people watch. And I got to tell you, it really, I mean, it was good. I was already very happy with it. But that final shot with the dancing and the voiceover and the look in the reflection, it comes together so well in those final 30 seconds or whatever that it bumped my score even more. So I'll start with you, Alex. What's your score for the Cat's Meow?
I guess we got one more to go, so I got to save my closing thoughts on P-Bog. But just watching this today, it was just like, man, that's what I've said this, I think, about almost every movie he's done, with the exception of Illegally Yours. Even the ones I don't like, it's just like, no one makes movies like this anymore, and it's a sign of why things used to be better. This is good. It's not in the top tier of what we've done. This is probably going to run next to What's Up, Doc, and I liked it more than They All Laughed. But it's not Target's Last Picture Show or St. Jack territory.
St. Jack.
Yeah.
the dark horse in this race.
So good. Still, B+. Man, that's probably going to translate to a 4-star review. Was entertained, was hooked, didn't find myself looking for a way out or necessarily needing to take breaks or wanting to take breaks, I should say. And so, yeah, I thought this was excellent. B+ from me, would definitely recommend to anybody, honestly. This is one of those that crosses that territory of like They All Laughed, for example, is a movie I think we both talked about it. Like, I'd recommend it, but tell them like, hey, it's kind of clunky, or if you're like into these kind of movies or something like that. Yeah. This is just a good movie, man. Cat's Meow, thumbs up, B+. What about yourself?
It was 4 stars, and then that final shot kicked it up to 4.5.
My God,
it might even. I was teetering with 5 stars. I was like, okay, let's calm down. maybe on the next rewatch. Right? I need to. I was just so happy that it was so good. And that it stuck the landing, and that it had something to say that not only works on its own, but also works as a bigger picture of what Bogdanovich's career is. That love he has for cinema and old Hollywood and filmmaking, it's not corrupted in the Cat's Meow, but it's definitely sadder. This is an older man that is just not so interested in just putting his heroes on a pedestal, but instead tearing them down and showing the bad things that they were doing and the tragedy of their existence and so on. It's just, man, it's a lot more than you would think from the poster or even from the description, right? Like the description, the titillating description is, oh, well, the man that inspires Citizen Kane murders somebody in his yacht while trying to kill Charlie Chaplin, or however you pitch it. And I was like, yeah, that is the story, but there's the underneath is just the corruption of Hollywood, and that's pretty compelling. So 4.5 for me, a B+ for Alex. Strong recommendation for our 5th Bogdanov film on the main feed. It's a good addition. Like you said, I think I'd put it like maybe at the bottom of the top tier. I'm going to have to just sit down and do a full Bogdanov ranking once we're done. As of this recording, Alex, we have 3 Bogdanov films left. 2 of them in the past, Mask and The Thing Called Love, and then his final movie, which is a return. It's a reunion with Tatum O'Neal. So if nothing else, she's funny that way. We'll have that point of discussion.
So what's coming up next? We got some P-Bog in the future, but we're going back to PJ Party for the next one, right?
Coming up next, our 5th PJ Party. The penultimate, just like this was the penultimate Bogdanov film, we have the penultimate PJ Party, and that is Confessions of a Shopaholic, starring Isla Fisher. PJ Hogan refuses to let box office failures bring him down, much like Peter Bogdanovich. He keeps coming back. People keep giving him money to make movies. They're like, hey, this could be the next My Best Friend's Wedding. So, I don't know anything about this, Alex. I know it's based on a book, and that's it.
I know Isla Fisher's in it.
I saw the poster, and that's it.
I remember building the movie up. I never watched it, though. According to my Google search here, though, it looks like we're in for quite a cast. We've got Joan Cusack, John Goodman, Leslie Bibb, John Lithgow, Kristen Scott Thomas, Julie Haggerty.
A crossover.
Wendy Malick, who I always pop for when she shows up in something. And Kristen Ritter, the gal who played Jesse's girlfriend on Breaking Bad.
27% in the tomato meter. So
buckle up.
Yeah, we'll see. And this is out of 172 reviews. So
I don't think that $100 million that made it the box office cared too much about the Rotten Tomatoes score.
Good. Good. PJ Hogan needs a win.
So yeah, we're coming to a close here on the main feed, but the party is going to continue to rage on at least a little bit longer over on Patreon. For our patrons, our after hours for this particular episode, we get some more Bogdanovich in our lives. Specifically, Cher-centric Peter Bogdanovich.
This is Mask. We'll talk about it, Alex, but this is before Cher won an Oscar, right?
Yeah, this was 85. Moonstruck might have been like 87, somewhere in there. So it was around that period, though.
Yeah, I think I saw an interview with Bogdanovich where he was talking about how it was basically the Moonstruck Oscar was her Oscar for Mask. The one that she deserved for Mask.
That sounds very much like something Peter Bogdanovich would say. Eric Stoltz.
Playing the titular Mask.
Yeah. The titular Mask. I watched this movie once in college when I was very high, and I have memories of that. And I remember it was very sad. So I'm curious how it's going to translate to a sober adult viewing.
Well, this one, we're not going to be mad if you don't watch it ahead of time, guys, because it's not streaming anywhere. And this is one where we had to use the Contrarians funds to get a DVD and add it to the collection. So I'm watching it the next couple of days and then passing the baton to Alex. I'm going to experience it on DVD in all its glory. Maybe we'll inspire you to just get online and buy the DVD yourself. So that's for the after hours. And then, of course, as we've been telling you throughout the month of July, our bonus episode on the Patreon feed, available to everybody, is on the movie The Misfits, a classic known primarily maybe for being the last Marilyn Monroe movie and the last Clark Gable movie that's demanded by patron Ben Murray, who thinks, according to what he put on the chat, that he might have found a movie that we both would go for. Mm-hmm. That was his goal, Alex. He doesn't want to hear us fight like we did over on the Roadhouse episode a while ago. He wants harmony between the contrarians.
Only one way to find out if it paid off.
Yes, listen to the episode on the Misfits. This is the end of the month, so it should be on the feed now. And then as far as quick video reviews, July has been our anime video review month. Alex covering Natsuka of the Valley of the Wind, and I covering Porco Rosso, 2 Miyazaki movies. If you like what we have to say there, then maybe you can go back to our Your Name episode, which is not a Miyazaki movie, but it was our first foray into anime, at least as far as contrarians go. So you like the Your Name episode, check out the video reviews. If you like the video reviews, check out the Your Name episode. It works either way. And those reviews are demanded by Katie and Oti from For Your Reference. They did it independently. They did not consult with Stu. This is not related to the Your Name pick from a few months ago. This is them throwing anime our way on their own. So that's what you have to look forward to on our Patreon channel. Alex, let's get out of here.
Let's do. Just don't shoot me in the back of the head, please.
Stu the Charleston.
Welcome to our end credits.
Or as we usually call them, our perennial plugs.
We start off by giving thanks to the Festive Years who provide our opening and closing tracks. They kick us off with Last Stand and take us home with Summer of 99. Be sure to head over to thefestiveyears.com for any and all Festive Years needs.
Our friend and fellow podcaster Hans Rothgieser is the man behind our logo and all the art you see related to our show. Reach out to him and let him know how much you like that little tomato. His email address is mildemonios@hotmail.com and his website is mildemonios.pe. That's MILDEMONIOS. You can also check out his podcast Nación Combi about Peruvian current affairs and Marginal about economy. Hans, thank you for all your support.
For those interested in the regularly absurd world of professional wrestling, Joe and the boys over at latenightgrin.com have you covered. Tell them the Contrarians sent you.
And we like to close with special thanks to our social media team of Zoe Perez and Coriari. Each of the social media accounts we mentioned in the introduction look as good as they do because of their work.
So that'll do it for this episode of The Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong, and we will catch you next time.
How much money he makes a year, who he knows. Just promise me you'll wear that dress and you won't forget that summer of 99.